Hey, what's up guys? This is Andrew Smersek with Combat Archery. Today we are going to be talking about pistol malfunctions, why they occur, what the different types of malfunctions are, how to prevent them, how to clear them, and then at the end of the video we're also going to show you something that's very simple that you can do that will have you clearing malfunctions when you don't even know they occurred. So stick around to the end for that. Now, the most common reason why malfunctions occur is going to be user error. Now that can mean that you didn't clean your gun, you didn't assemble your gun correctly, and for that matter, I don't let other people clean my guns because, you know, I'm in charge of their maintenance and I don't want that variable thrown in of someone else doing something to my gun. The other big thing can be if you do modifications to your gun, like at the range there's a guy who put a ghost trigger bar into his Glock 43, and yeah, had a great trigger press, felt great, but at least twice per magazine the trigger would be dead and you'd have to conduct immediate action to get the gun working again. So that would be considered user error also. And selecting poor ammunition, stuff like that. As far as what modifications are okay to do to the gun, I just do new sights, and I put in the moon cut, and that makes clearing double fees easier, especially one-handed, and we'll talk about that later. But the usual thing that you'll see with user error causing malfunctions is going to be riding the slide forward. That's a big one, bad habit that people have. Blocking the ejection port right here when they run the action, because that keeps stuff in the gun that shouldn't be there. Short stroking, as in you don't go back all the way and maybe go forward and then back. That causes malfunctions. But yeah, in general, user error. Now, bad ammunition, you know, if you buy shitty ammo, that would be user error also. But you know, improperly stored ammo, stuff like that. In general, if you are shooting a 9mm and you are running 115 grain brass case ammo, you should be fine. Full metal jacket, 115 brass case, factory new ammo. The other thing is magazines can cause a malfunction. So if you are carrying magazines that you regularly shoot, you should stop doing that. You should go get new magazines that you carry that are like on your gear. So you got, you know, rifle mags in your chest rig, whatever. There should be brand new mags that you never use. Maybe you shoot through them once or twice to make sure they function, but after that you just leave them loaded, leave them alone. So that way your fighting mags are brand new, and then your practice mags, they can get beat up. So they wear out, feed lips come apart, base plates get broken off, springs get weak, they get dirty, stuff like that. That causes a lot of malfunctions too. And you should number them, that way you know, like magazine number 3 gives me double feeds, and magazine number 7 gives me a failure to fire. Maybe you throw them away, or maybe you just put them in a special spot and write double feed and failure to fire on them, whatever, or just throw them away. That's fine too. Now, the methods for clearing malfunctions, I got to give due credit to tactical response, because methods I use I learned at Fighting Pistol. The reason why I like them is it's simple. You know, like if you watch James Yeager's videos, he says if tap rack doesn't fix it, just reload it. And that's a big thing to get out of this too. If tap rack doesn't fix it, just reload it. That will clear all your malfunctions. Now, we're going to talk about type 1, type 2, type 3, and then we're going to talk about mortaring the pistol. That's what I call it, at least. It's kind of like mortaring the rifle, but we're doing it with the pistol. Now, whenever you're doing a tap rack, that would be the immediate action. To a quick and set of a bang, or a dead mushy trigger, anything where the gun's not shooting anymore and you know it's not an emergency reload. That's going to be a tap rack. Now when we do that, we want to first, of course, take our finger off the trigger. We have a video on taking your finger off the trigger, so watch that, because it's not something people usually practice. But when you're practicing malfunctions, you need to pay extra attention to taking your finger off the trigger. So start with your finger on, then finger off, bring the gun up to what I call a high 45, so kind of a 45-degree angle, right? I can see the gun and I can see the target. Think about something Andy Sanford said, looking through the trigger guard at your target. Move, tap, rack, and get your grip and get back on target. Okay. Now, when you're racking, do it from the rear. Do it where your palm is on this side of the slide, and then your pinky should be behind the ejection port. That keeps it clear. And it's oriented down so that anything that's in the gun can fall out. When you rack it hard to the rear and let it go. Okay, think about hitting your shoulder. When you are doing it as a lefty, tap, rotate it over, and then this knuckle is going to go back behind the ejection port, and my thumb's going to go along this side, and I'm going to rack it hard and hit my chest. Okay, so think about when you pull it back, you kind of feel it stop, and then you just continue on with your hand. That would be the immediate action. Now, don't do it from the front serrations. I have a video about that. That'll be in the description. But that's how you do it. Now, for type 1, failure to feed or failure to fire. So, failure to feed, one way it can happen is if that magazine is not inserted fully, right? So it can be sticking out just a little bit, right? So here it's just barely sticking out, and I can rack it over and over and over. Nothing will feed in, and if there's nothing in there, nothing's going to come out. So if that magazine's sticking out, that's where the tap comes in, and then you rack, and that will put one in the chamber. Okay. A failure to feed can also be where the gun is out of battery. It could be sitting kind of like this, or even forward a little bit more. When you press the trigger, sometimes that will actually push the slide forward. Okay, same thing, move, tap, rack, that clears it. Okay, takes the bad round out, puts a good one in. If the slide is back a little bit, I'm not worried about doing something special for that, because again, tap, rack will clear it. Now, with type 1, failure to feed or failure to fire, if you get a click instead of a bang just because you have a bad round, you know, like light primer strike happens, or you know, just that round sucks. Don't, you know, rechamber previously chambered rounds. Don't pick rounds up off the ground and use them. Just leave them alone. But same thing, if you get a click instead of a bang, finger off, move, tap, rack, and that will clear it. Okay. Now the last thing that will happen with that too, well, we'll save that for later. But anyways, type 2. Now that is a stovepipe failure to eject, right? That is where you got brass sticking out. It can look like this, right? Where you see it sticking straight up. It can be off to the side and like that. And it can also be in line with the slide like this, right? We'll talk about that here in a second. But again, same thing, just move, tap, rack. What happens when you move, tap, rack, ejection port down, that will fall out, puts a good round in. I know people talk about sweeping it. That used to be a popular thing, but that doesn't guarantee a good round would go in. Just because we sweep the brass out, it doesn't guarantee that a good round will feed in, okay? So that's why racking it was one option that fixes it, right? And you don't have to think about what I'm going to do for this certain thing, right? Less options means faster decision making. Hick's law, right? It's one thing that's going to work 100% of the time. Now, why you will get a a stovepipe. And actually this particular thing can also happen for a failure to feed. Well, type 1 is limp wristing, right? So that is where you're not holding onto the gun tight enough. I've seen that happen and cause stovepipes before. It's kind of weird when that happens, but generally that will be a thing that causes failure to feed. But it can also cause a stovepipe. I've seen that too, and that just means you have to really muscle the gun. Like smaller people, you actually have to grip it as tight as you can, and sometimes put your body into it to keep that gun cycling. For like a dude like me, weighing over 200 pounds, it's not that big of a deal, but that can be a reason. The other thing is that brass can bounce off of something and go back into the gun. So indoor shooting ranges, you have walls next to you, bounce off the wall, goes back in. If you're in a vehicle, you can bounce off anything inside the vehicle and go back in. Inside the building, same thing. If you're shooting underneath something, right, it can bounce off the ground, go back in, or it can, if you're underneath something, it can bounce off of whatever's above it and go back in. So that is where tap rack will clear it. That's why that happens. Now the worst type of type 2, when it's sticking up like this, I always just describe it as a visible type 2, because you can see the brass sticking up when you're looking through the sights. If you're really focused on the target, maybe you don't notice, but that's where you just got to practice your move tap rack, and you'll clear it. But the worst type is where it is inline, right? For this, we call the inline stovepipe and a horizontal stovepipe, but basically it's like that, right? I call it a non-visible, just because when you're looking through the sights, it's not visible. And in fact, with a slide back that far, when it's set up like that, it may even look like a reload. Now, if you reload ejection port down, right, that will clear it. But if we're thinking like, there's no way I just shot my full magazine, this has to be a malfunction, it feels like a malfunction, then we know that if we move tap rack, it will clear it. Now I've seen another video where they were talking about how you have to lock a slide open and then turn it upside down and do other stuff. You don't need to do it. You just saw me clear it, move tap rack, ejection port down, it clears it. Okay, so don't need to add anything extra to that. But that is kind of the worst type 2 malfunction to have to deal with. So if you were dry practicing to get better at clearing malfunctions, I would start right there. I would start with that one, because if you do not have the ejection port facing down, it's not going to clear it. It's very easy for that piece of brass sitting there straight like that, if it's not facing down, to just kind of fall or stay stuck in there, because you have to bring the slide back and it has to have the right amount of space to fall out. So I would practice that. Now, how you set that up: start with no mag in the gun, slide lock back, take that piece of brass, set it up right there, hold it in place as you ease the slide forward, then you'll have it stuck in, then take your mag and put it in. Okay, so like here with dummy rounds, you're gonna practice this with dummy rounds, set it up like that, press the trigger, finger off, move, tap, rack, clear it, back on target. Okay, if you're doing it live at the range, you would just put a live mag in, or a magazine with live ammo, after you set up the malfunction. For practicing the type 1s, get these dummy rounds. I think they're ST Action Pro. I believe that's what they are. And just put them randomly in your magazines, like all the time. Put them where it's like not the first one, not the last one, or I mean they can be, but just have them randomly in the magazine. Try not to have them so it's like one dummy round after another, and you will get organic malfunctions that way. But I would start with the type 2 to get those movements down, and start with that horizontal stovepipe or that non-visible stovepipe so that you have the hardest one to clear. Now, that's type 1 and type 2. I think I mentioned it earlier, but again, limp wristing can cause a failure to feed. So if you get those, it's probably just you're not holding onto the gun tight enough. But the other one, type 3, so that's a double feed. Now sometimes tap rack can clear it, right? Like if it's not that bad of a double feed, try and make it where it's not horrific. Okay, you little fucker. See, when I practice them, I don't even set it up this way. Yep, hang on a sec. Alright. So if you cover the ejection port, that can cause a malfunction, right? So I'll just do it that way. But anyways, like this, move, tap, and rack can actually clear that double feed. But it doesn't always clear a double feed. So I set it up in a way where it just move, tap, rack wouldn't clear it. How you do that, let's see, is start with the slide lock to the rear. Put your mag in. Make sure you use a dummy round for this just to be safe, right? You wouldn't want to have an out of battery detonation. That can mess up your hands pretty bad, but you push around into the chamber right there, and then the slide forward on that. Now, again, like this is, you know, those other, the move tap rack, that's seen in a lot of places, but this specifically, I learned at Fighting Pistol with Tactical Response, and I think this is pretty damn cool. Makes clearing double feeds super easy. You know, I'll put a link in the description to the Fighting Pistol DVD. You should watch that, but you should really go take Fighting Pistol at Tactical Response. Like, the DVD is great, but the class is way, way better. You know, you can't put everything that's in the class onto the DVD. And those of you who have watched the DVD and taken the class know exactly what I'm talking about. But anyways, so I got my double feed, right? Now the immediate action is always going to be a move, tap, rack, right? If that doesn't fix it, just reload it. So you bring your new mag up, and then you can grip it on the sides to rip out the old mag. But in this case, I got the moon cut. Makes it a lot easier. So I just put my middle finger on the moon cut, hold down the mag release, rip the mag out, insert the new mag, rack it, and my gun's working again. Okay. So that's the simple rule, right? Is if tap rack does not fix it, just reload it. Now that works on most modern guns. The Glock 42. The 38 caliber Glock, it didn't work on that, and there was like one other one, but I don't think it was a modern, you know, striker fired pistol that I saw it didn't work on. But for the most part, that's always going to work. If it's not working, that could be because you have the gun angled in a weird way, something where it's not like this, where you can see through. You rip it out, and it looks just like that. At that kind of high 45 position. I have seen it where it doesn't work like that because they have it angled weird and it screws it up. But that should work. If it doesn't work, and with your, you know, gun that's different, then you would want to lock the slide back, then rip out the mag, then rack, and then reload. Okay. So lock the slide back, remove the mag, rack, reload. Or for some reason, it's always 3 racks when people teach double feeds. I've always seen that, like in the military and in lots of different videos and stuff. It's always 3 racks. But anyways, now the other cool thing with the moon cut is that for clearing double feeds, the reason why I put that on my guns is you can just hook the base plate on your belt and rip the mag out like that when you are using just one hand to clear the malfunction. But yeah, so that was type 1, failure to feed, failure to fire. Type 2, stovepipe, type 3 double feed. Now, the last malfunction would be where you go to rack it, but that slide is stuck. It just will not move. Oh, my bad. Type 3s, that's usually you're covering the ejection port, or your the feed lips on the mag are starting to separate, or you short choke. So you bring the slide back a little bit, and then not all the way, ease it forward, and then you come back, and it screws up the cycling. So most of the time when I see double feeds, it's you're blocking the ejection port. You have it face up, and you slowly rack it, or it's being short stroked. But anyways, back to mortaring, right? So that's when you go to tap, rack, and you just cannot rack the gun. It's stuck, right? Now I've seen this happen with reloaded ammo, and I've had it happen actually with this gun right here when it was brand new. And that's because it wasn't lubricated. Like, I just had factory lube, and I wanted to shoot it that way to see what would happen. And I ended up getting a horizontal, non-visible stovepipe, and then I had this happen where I couldn't rack the slide at all. But if you just, clean your gun and put a little bit, like a drop of oil in the chamber, and just spread that around, every time I've done that, then I don't get where the slide is stuck and I have to mortar it. Also had a friend have it happen to him using steel case ammo, and I think his gun was just super dirty. But I've seen it happen several times. It's not super common, but like if you see a lot of people shoot at the range and in classes and stuff, it's going to happen eventually. Now, this one, again, I learned this as actual response from Jay Gibson. But if the slide is stuck, you just can't rack it. Now, there's a two-hand method and a one-hand method. The one-hand method may just work better regardless. If you find a ledge and you put the gun against that ledge, like imagine a table or a wall, and you put the top of the slide on the ledge, you can ram that rear sight into the ledge and it's going to break it open, right? Kind of like mortaring a rifle. Or grip it just like this, real hard, real tight, web of the hand, they come up in the tang of the pistol, bring it back, and you can break it open like that. Now, you see right there, it didn't, the slide did not come back all the way. So in that case, you would still have to tap, rack again to clear the malfunction. Now, I would anticipate having to do it if you're doing that two-handed method. Every time I've had to do it the two-handed method, I always had to tap rack at the end. So if you ever practice that, then it would be, let's see, hope I have another, yep, okay. So then it would be break it, and then tap, rack, if you're practicing clearing it that way. And I would not set it up by like bending the case and shoving it in there to cause a real one, just because with an AR-15 I've broken a buffer tube, a buttstock, a charging handle, setting it up where I have to mortar the rifle. I wouldn't want to fuck with it with a pistol, but that's how you do it if it should occur. Now, so if tap rack doesn't fix it, just reload it, right? That's the way I learned a tactical response, and I believe that's the best way. It's simple, right? The other thing is sometimes when you tap rack, the slide's going to stay stuck to the rear, right? Because it's out of ammo, okay? Now, the reason why that happens is sometimes the mags are wore out. Like I have several mags, they don't lock the gun to the rear anymore when I'm shooting, right? If I'm just doing this, it'll lock to the rear, but if I actually shoot the mag dry, it won't. Even if I don't have my thumb on the slide lock lever, because that's one thing that can happen, is just a little bit of pressure on the slide lock lever, and the slide will not lock back. But it's also just because they get wore out. Now, in like SIG 320s, I never get them to lock back for me. Not reliably, at least. It'll be like maybe half the time. But the thing with that, right? Again, tap rack doesn't fix it. If you tap rack an empty mag, then you know to reload it, right? So here's the cool thing is now if you were to have a bad malfunction, right, like this non-visible stovepipe right here, right, where you're looking through the sights and you don't see the brass sticking up. I mean, that one's sticking up a little bit. Let me fix that. Okay, way worse now, right? So the brass is in there, but I wouldn't see it looking through the sights. Now again, if you were to just reload the gun, right, and you have the ejection port down like that, thinking it was a reload because the slide is so far back, it would clear it, right? So you could legitimately just reload the gun every time and clear the malfunction. Like if you reloaded it when you didn't need to, right? Not saying to practice that. I would practice malfunctions more than reloads, because like statistically speaking, in gunfights in America, people don't end up having to do emergency reloads, right? And that should be an easy thing that we inherently do at the range all the time anyways. But if you were to do a reload instead of immediate action of the move, tap, rack, it would clear all the malfunctions all the same, okay? So that's kind of one of the cool things. Now, that secret that I talked about, where you can be clearing malfunctions that you don't even know happened, right? Like you clear a malfunction even though you didn't know it happened, is another thing from Tactical Response that I thought was awesome, was they have you, every time you top off the gun, you reload it, right? Or excuse me, you rack the gun, right? So, you know, they have the WIAT protocol: fight, assess, scan, top off. So you fight the bad guy, right? And then you assess, do we need to fight him anymore? Then you scan, do we need to fight anyone else? And then you top off the gun. And every time you top off, you rack the gun, right? Which people freak out about racking a round out. But the cool thing with that is, you know, real stressful situation, like, I don't know, someone trying to kill you and the people you love, you know, that could be pretty stressful. You could have a malfunction and not be aware of it, right, as you're scanning. And the fact that you racked the gun at the end, right? So you do your scans, you sit there with a malfunction, you don't even realize it because you're looking for where the next bad guy is. And then you top off the gun and we've cleared the malfunction. You didn't even realize you had it. Think about, too, again, just because the slide is supposed to lock to the rear when it goes empty, it doesn't mean it's going to. But if you just rack it every time, you know it's going to be fine. So that was that little secret there at the end. But anyways, so again, like as far as I've seen, man, Tactical Response has the best way to clear malfunctions. The best pistol class, fighting pistol, the best pistol class I've taken. You know, take the full trifecta, me, action, medical, and the fight especially. Like, you know, if you've taken fighting pistol and you thought that was awesome, go take me action, medical, and the fight too. Fucking amazing. But yeah, that's all. I mean, I went in more detail, but the methods are also on the fighting pistol DVD. Go watch that. Link is in the description. Go take fighting pistol at Tactical Response. But yeah, that's it. I mean, the only other things that can really happen that are kind of uncommon, it'd be like a squib load. So like instead of be like bang, 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 pop. And that would mean that, you know, potentially you have a round lodged in the barrel because not all the powder burnt off. That's really bad. That's a good reason to carry a backup gun. You have a slam fire, you rack the gun, and it just goes off, right? That doesn't happen a lot, especially if you don't modify your gun. But yeah, that's about it, guys. Anyways, anything I missed, comment below. If you like this video, please leave a comment. Make sure you like the video. If you are not subscribed, make sure you are subscribed. Keep fighting communism, and remember that training saves lives.